We are going to be talking about President Joe Biden's State of the Union. It was on a Tuesday. We're going to be talking about his gaffes, his policy statements, and some of the implications surrounding his speech. We're going to talk about all of that and more on episode 335 of the In the Tank podcast.
I mean, it just basically exposed Joe Biden for who he is. He's always been a blowhard and a jerk and a nitwit. And, you know, what's that saying? It's like always wrong, but never in doubt. You know, that applies, as we just saw, to his vice president as well. I mean, Joe Biden is not a leader. He's not a policy wonk. His defining characteristic is a confidence and ambition in inverse proportion to his intellect and his talent. That Joe Biden is who Joe Biden is. If you had a clip from 10 years ago when he was vice president of the United States speaking, and now it is a completely different person. And we have this mumbling, obviously a man in intellectual decline, trying to lead the United States. You know, Joe Biden has never been a leader, which is good because he's always been wrong about everything. Every major public policy in this country, he's been wrong about for 50 years. So, you know, overall, was that exactly what I expected? It's exactly the State of the Union address I expected to get out of Joe Biden. It was out of touch. It was dishonest. It was utterly forgettable. No one's going to remember a damn thing he said last night. I mean, we might because we kind of pay attention to it, but Americans are not going to remember any of this stuff, except for the fact that he could barely get a word past his lips without mumbling something and skipping syllables and frankly, just speaking in clear English. That is the only thing that makes the State of the Union address memorable.
What struck me the most was the lack of cohesion throughout the speech. It seemed like it was, you know, I broke it down into two parts. The first half was all about Ukraine. And then the second half, Joe Biden actually reversed course on many things, saying that he wants to fund the police. He wants to, you know, make sure that the border is safe and secure. He wants to fight inflation. So he, you know, it was just this like smorgasbord of things that he was just saying that were completely out of line with the policies that he has pushed for the past year.
The White House has been, and Joe Biden's various social media accounts have been putting out various charts and graphs and statements for months now, talking about how incredible the economy is, how it's roaring back. And they'll show these charts, that bar graphs, where their bar graph, it's jobs added under a president's first year or something. And Joe Biden has all these jobs added and compared to all these other presidents. And it's like, as you just pointed out, those jobs were not jobs added. Those are jobs that they murdered, okay, like 2 years ago. And now, because they've allowed the economy to open up again, which had nothing to do with Joe Biden, because he had nothing to do with the vaccine being approved, which is the real reason why economies started opening up again. That was all with the Trump administration and private pharmaceutical companies and all that stuff. Some of the jobs, most of them, but not even all of them, have come back. So to say you've added jobs when you have fewer full-time jobs today than you did at the start of the pandemic is not just, I mean, it's just the most dishonest thing you could possibly come up with. He did everything possible not to have jobs added. Right. And then he comes around and claims that he makes these victory claims about how many jobs have been added. I mean, that was egregious. I don't think anybody believes that unless they love him and they believe anything he says. Most people know the economy is not doing so well right now. And I don't think that he's fooling anybody with his stupid bar graphs and his horrible speeches, but he's trying. I mean, right. That's the plan, but I don't think it's working.
Board member Steve Malloy, board member of the Heartland Institute. Also, his Twitter handle is Junk Science, @Junk Science. It's absolutely a must follow. He had tweeted during the State of the Union, he watched it live. He said, climate change is an existential threat and must be addressed by an all-out, all-government effort. That's why he breezed by climate and energy in like 20 seconds.
That's right. That's right.
Are we gonna talk about the Rashida Tlaib thing later?
That's later.
Okay,
yeah.
Then I'll get to that later. But I will just say that you sort of set this whole thing up by saying, you know, are the leftists, you know, are they buying this whole, you know, just the charging stations is appeal to the left? The answer is obviously no, because of that Rashida Tlaib thing.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
that's
right.
the obvious answer. So
we'll
I'll just throw
definitely
that out there, and we'll get to it later.
We'll definitely get to
that. And of course not. The other reason, you know, this speech did not have leftists in mind is the defund the police thing. I mean, when he started chanting "fund the police," you know, I was worried that the squad might kill him or something. I don't know. I mean,
In-
it was I was really worried. I wasn't sure what was going to happen there.
In the
So,
broadcast that I watched, they only showed AOC like stand up and applaud once, and it was when he was talking about the charging station.
Yeah.
I think.
Right. That's probably
Which
the
aren't
only
going to
thing that
AOC
she's
was
happy
not
about.
was not very happy. But Donnie, one other thing on the economic front, Joe Biden claimed that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, passed by President Donald Trump and the GOP Congress, that was a windfall for the 1%. He went through all that, all those lies again. And we know for a fact at the Heartland Institute, because Justin Haskins wrote an excellent policy paper about this, that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act actually overwhelmingly benefited working and middle class Americans. So, I mean, the guy is just not beholden to the truth. So
Sure.
he gets up there and he just spouts these, these blatant lies. And, it's difficult because, days later, we can go and we can fact check it. But in real time, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people said, wow, well, yeah, that sounds good.
One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poor. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation.
What?
Lower your costs, not your wages.
Oh,
Folks,
Hey,
It's that simple. It's that simple, guys. Lower the costs.
that's
What are
it.
you gonna do?
That's it. It's that simple. Why didn't anyone think of
more
that?
cars and semiconductors in America. More
that'll
infrastructure
lower
and
costs.
innovation in America. More goods
Same
moving
cost.
faster and cheaper in America. More jobs where you can earn a good living in America. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America as well.
That sounds a lot like the Donald Trump agenda. Just saying.
Yeah, why are all of those things being made in other countries? Why aren't they being made in the United States already? Oh, I wonder if it's because of the overburden of regulations and stuff in the United States that makes it economically infeasible to make certain things.
And how about the fact that Joe Biden's a globalist and he's been pushing globalist policies for the past 40 years in Washington, D.C. And now all of a sudden he's an America First guy? Like, give me a
He
break.
just got through telling us at some point, either before or after that, I think it was before that, he just got through telling us that we need to raise taxes on everybody who has money in order to make them pay their fair share. But now he's saying just lower your costs and we won't have to lower wages. It's
I want to hear his solution for poverty. Just stop being poor.
Yeah, stop being poor. It's that simple.
Wow,
It's
great.
honestly,
Thank
it's
you,
that
Joe.
simple. Just don't be poor. Just
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah, he definitely tried to blame businesses for rising prices. That was definitely the theme of his comments when it came to inflation, which between that and what we talked about last week with them trying to blame everything from the supply chain disruptions to inflation on what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia, it's like this is their talking point. And it's just evidence that they don't really have a solution to inflation other than just trying to blame it on someone that's other than themselves.
to solve inflation, lower your costs and raise your wages. It's like, hey, that corner 7-Eleven gas station, lower your gas prices, lower the price of milk and sodas and bread and snacks. Oh, and also pay all of your employees $15 an hour.
Problem solved.
Problem solved.
I think that that he's hoping if he can just say things that are negative about rich people and business owners, that people who don't think about it for more than a second will just be like, yep, they're the problem if
Right.
they're not paying their fair share, as if paying their fair share would have anything to do with curbing inflation. Like, what does that have any, how does that make any sense? I don't even understand the argument that the guy is trying to make, even in his incoherent, ridiculous ramblings. It's like, it's just, I don't even know what he's going for here other than, and the worst part of it is this is written down. This isn't off the cuff Q&A on the way to the helicopter and some guy shouts, "Hey, Joe, how do we fix inflation?" And he says, "Lower the costs." That's not what's going on. He had a speech vetted by supposed policy experts. 1,000 people signed off on it. He went through 7 drafts over 2 months, probably, I'm guessing, probably more than that. These are some of the most crafted speeches
Right.
in the universe
Sure.
of speeches. And somehow that's what they came up with. They're all sitting around the room saying, "Boy, how are we going to deal with this inflation thing? You know, let's just say lower the costs. How about that?" I don't even understand that.
But this is how stupid Biden administration thinks Americans are. He also said that to cure inflation, we have to pass Build Back Better, which will cost trillions of dollars. We all know this is a fundamental economic, premise. When you pump more money into the system, the money that you have is worth less, hence inflation. Come on.
Yeah, well, when he starts talking about like corporations paying their fair share, I already brought up the Intel guy, right? He had the Intel guy. Everyone celebrated the Intel guy because he was suggesting investing $100 billion in some new microchip manufacturing plant in the Midwest. But it was all predicated on whether or not they can get the American Innovation Act passed. And I looked very briefly, so take this with a grain of salt, into what the American Innovation Act is. And one of the components of it is like a $200 billion investment in different products that will help us, be 21st century compliant and all this stuff or something like that. And it was just like, okay, so if Intel building this giant manufacturing plant is predicated on whether or not we can pass this, I can only assume that is just filled with tax incentives and all of these things to get Intel to actually buy this. So it's like, and then fast forward 5 years, it's like, are the left now going to be like demonizing Intel for not paying their fair share because they're taking advantage of a bill that you wanted to pass so that they could build this power plant or this manufacturing plant? It's so contradictory. Your head will explode.
Yeah, it kind of proves that whatever taxes they might end up paying, higher taxes, if they pay higher taxes at all, it won't amount to the subsidies that they're going to get from the government.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they would just build it right now. What's stopping them? They've got more money now than they will when they're paying their fair share, right? So what are they waiting for? I don't understand. Just build it. It's like, obviously, they're waiting for a handout. And if they're waiting for a handout, that means their fair share is actually lower net than what they're paying now. So I mean, it's just so frustrating.
I was thinking when he was talking about like fair share and stuff, was the Intel guy like sweating? He was just standing up for an applause, and then 10 minutes later, it's just like, oh, okay, don't recognize me anymore. Jim, we're gonna do COVID next, so if you want to get that clip pulled up.
All right, here we go.
It's the loss of life. Let's use this moment to reset. So stop looking at COVID as a partisan dividing line.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
That's a line that Jim's gonna jump on.
Let's stop seeing each other as enemies. And start seeing each other.
Is that Jerry Seinfeld shirt?
Fellow Americans. Look.
All right, let's just stop it right there, because I know Jim's got plenty to say about that. Let's not have COVID be this dividing line between Americans. Jim, surely, Jim, it's partisan hackery, mostly on the right, that's causing a divide when it comes to COVID, right, Jim?
Yeah, I got a little triggered by that last night when I was watching the replay of this and texting you for Joe Biden. I mean, we talked about this on the pod a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I kind of went off. But the idea now that Democrats and Joe Biden in particular is saying, "Hey, man, let's not think about people who opposed us on COVID policy as anything other than just fellow Americans. Let's treat this like a disease." And he whispers things like that. That also triggers me. But no, you don't get to stand up there and say that. You're the person. Joe Biden and his people said that this was going to be a winter of severe illness and death for the unvaccinated. That the unvaccinated were going to stress our hospitals to the breaking point because they're so selfish. They didn't do their patriotic duty and get vaccinated like me and like Fauci said you should. By the way, Fauci's now in the witness protection program. No one's seen him for 2 weeks.
Yeah, where is he?
But you don't get to stand there and say that now. You just do not have any moral standing to say that. You pitted this country who are you tried to pit the vaccinated against the unvaccinated. You said that everyone that didn't have the jab was going to die. They were going to have a winter of misery and death. You cannot now at the State of the Union address say, "Hey, man, we're all Americans. Let's just treat this like a disease and stop otherizing those that you spent the last 2 years otherizing." You just don't get to do that. And he was, never called out on it. If he should have been heckled by anybody in that State of the Union address, it should have been then. And in fact, a lot of Republicans should have just stood up and walked out, because this administration and its bureaucratic state has divided this country. Has called Joe Biden advocated that people who didn't get the shot should be fired.
Right, exactly.
He said every nurse and doctor who doesn't want to get the jab, or if you work in a nursing home and you accept Medicaid, which is everybody, you're out of a job. Now, you don't get to say you're fired if you don't get the jab, and now, hey, let's all get along. This is, again, gaslighting is the term of 2022, and it was offensive to me and should be to anybody, whether you have the vaccine or you don't, that our president could stand up there and say something like that.
AOC in an interview was somewhat critical of Biden's address, saying that it left, quote, left a little bit to be desired. She said he basically only paid lip service to climate change and some other things that we should be doing a lot more of. A couple of Democrats have come out and said that the Rashida Tlaib's response was counterproductive. Democrat Representative Josh Gottheimer from New Jersey said the speech from Tlaib was like slashing her own tires or keying their own car. And then even Bill Maher during his show on HBO said that Tlaib's speech was like sacking your own quarterback. So a very similar analogy to the last one today. But thoughts on this? I mean, we've talked in the past about the perceived growing schism in the Democratic Party between the more socialist side and the more establishment side. Justin, you were the first to kind of hint towards this. Is Tlaib's speech more evidence of that, or do you think something else is going on?
No, this isn't more evident. Well, it's more evidence. It's not necessarily more significant evidence. We've known that this rift has existed for a long time. What it is evidence of is how weak Joe Biden is and how vulnerable he is, because you would never have this happen with a president, a sitting president who's in his first term, especially, who has any popularity at all. If he had any popularity at all, you would never do this to your own president, because again, you're sacking your own quarterback, you're keying your own car, you're doing all these horrible things to yourself. Why would you do that? The only reason you would do that is if you think it actually benefits you to hurt your own party's president more than it helps you to just get up there and let him say whatever he wants and then not respond to it. So it shows you where Joe Biden's presidency is, which is essentially in the trash can. And I think that's really what the sign of this is. Rashida Tlaib is a socialist, literally. She's part of the Democratic Socialists of America, the largest socialist organization. She's part of AOC's, that whole squad group that AOC is in with Ilhan Omar and others. And so she's far, far left at a time when Joe Biden probably should be moving to the center. And I think they know that, and they're trying to drag him, back maybe a little bit. This might be kind of a warning shot against him. Don't cross us, or you're going to get more of this kind of infighting. But at this point, I think everyone has just given up, to be totally honest, on Joe Biden. I think they know it's over. I think they know he's toast. He'll never get to a second term. And they're all just positioning themselves now for the future, because it's done. When Build Back Better died, that was it for them. If they can't even get that passed, then nothing that the far left wants is going to get passed, because that wasn't even what they wanted. So I think more than anything, that's what it's a sign of.